Hi, it's I-Fell3 here. Before I turn this Peugeot boxer van into a camper, I want to make sure that the interior is totally waterproof. I've looked at YouTube videos and there are ones of Mercedes and V-Dubs, etc. But I don't believe there's any for the Boxers, the Relays and the Fiat Ducatos. When I inquired on the Facebook group, a man revealed what he used. He might not want his name to be publicly promoted, but thank you anyway. He claimed to have used a 2mm thick neoprene rubber-backed self-adhesive strip. Now, I've heard of people who want to use the Sikaflex alone, just attach the solar panels to their camper vans. They say it's good stuff and it bonds really well, but really, you want a mechanical bond. But if people are willing to stick solar panels onto a roof using Sikaflex, I was afraid that applying it to the trim clips, God knows how I would ever remove them if they ever got damaged. Therefore, I thought this gentleman's idea made a lot of sense. It seemed like the wisest choice. Since you want water to drain out of the trim, if it was to get inside, you should place the Sikaflex around the sides and the top rather than the bottom. I brought a 10-meter long 25mm wide strip that was 2mm thick for an L2 van. Although 10 meters is probably not necessary, it does the job, and if you might have some extra for any additional frontal pieces that you might wish to complete at a later date. I start by removing the trim. Some of the clips face one direction and the others face in the opposite direction. To remove the trim, using a trim tool, you must push the trim forward and clip it from the front clips, and then push it backwards to release the rear. Even on the long strip, some are facing left and some are facing right, or should I say forwards and backwards. Once the panel is taken off, you can see how bad it is behind there. At first I believed the small rubber skirt around the clip was a waterproof seal. These seals are not watertight. Apparently their purpose is to prevent vibration. The bottom ones will pull out in 25 degrees. The top row is more difficult. I've used a blunt pair of wire cutters. I've used these in other videos before when shaping metal. When you squeeze them, you'll hear a tiny click, then they will pull out. There will be about 50-50 chance that half of them will break. So make sure you've got some backups and the spares that I've linked in the video description. That's the cheapest price I could find them, but they might be cheaper elsewhere. If any of them break, keep the rubber seals just in case others perish. On the rear large panel, I think somebody had been there before, as the clips looked a little different. Also, using a 7mm socket will ping out any clips that are accessible from the inside. Because of this, it's perfect for removing them from the rear doors. In any case, save the old ones. You can always swap them out if necessary. I'm just going to clean this area now. You might get a little bit of water in there, but it really isn't going to hurt that much. So I'm carefully washing with one of these grit guards to catch any dirty particles. Then I'll go back over it to give it a good old clean. Fairy up liquid, washing up liquid, whatever you want to call it, will strip off most of the waxes, grease, and any chemicals. Generally speaking, avoid using washing up liquid on paintwork. Baby shampoo, at the most, is the strongest solution you should use. As soon as you start using washing up liquids and the like, the paint's protection really starts to be lost. So after going over it again, it's ready for the clay bar. This is an old clay bar, it's not a new one, and I keep it for old surfaces. This is going over paint that's been sitting for about 7 years unseen, so using a new one on this will just waste a decent brand new one. The old clay bar makes sense because there's a lot of dirt inside and trapped tarmac that is accumulated over time. I'll show you me doing the steps on this front panel and then I'll finish the others off camera, but it'll be the same process. I'm using the soap solution just to help the clay bar glide over the surface. There are proper clay bar solutions you can use, but for this task I'm just using water and washing up liquid. After wiping down the excess clay that's on the panels, I'll go over it with an auto clean polish. The polish will help make sure that the surface is good for anything that needs to stick to it, as well as removing any grime left over from the clay bar. I'm checking where these panels sit. Sometimes they'll rub on the paintwork and go through the galvanization, allowing bare metal to rust. Even in these little holes where the clips fit into, rust can develop. This side is not too bad, the other side was a little bit worse. possibly where the side door keeps opening and closing. The majority of these paint chips still have the galvanised coating under them, which shields the metal underneath. But down here you can see where it's gone through, and that's actually gone back to the bare metal. In particular, the spot weld down here has begun to rust. Since using those blue paint remover discs, this tool has undoubtedly become my favourite. By using this nylon wire brush, you can prevent any loose metal wires from rusting later on and getting spread all over the van. Combined with a drill with good speed control, you can really get in there and you can take off most of the paint and the areas that could start to rust back down to bare metal. I will simply remove any loose or damaged paint from all these areas, including the holes. This is somewhere that I would never ever want to see ever again. If you take good care of it now, you'll have fewer worries later. Now, a lot of people like to use crust, and that's a rust converter. Don't get me wrong, it's okay if you have a lot of rust you need to convert. A lot of times these products tend to use a tannic acid as the active ingredient. I'm using a phosphoric acid based rust remover. When I wipe it off, this will actually dissolve the rust and get rid of it, rather than converting it. The metal somewhat pickles if I leave on the solution for an extended period of time, but it's not a proper pickling solution. To properly pickle metal, the solutions use more of an aggressive sort of acid and they etch into the steel. Phosphoric will change the colour of the steel from a bright shiny grey to a dull matte. This JENOLITE acid remover comes in two types, and I believe it's also available in a spray form. If you need to dip something or spray it into a difficult to reach area, the liquid is excellent. Because the gel doesn't drip too much, the gel is an excellent choice for this situation. Once applied, it then starts to bubble, and that's the chemical reaction taking place. I'll leave it for about 2 or 3 minutes and then go back over it with a brush to allow the gel to remix, allowing the rust to be eaten by fresh acid. Just remember to pour a little amount that you need into a pot. I've used a yogurt pot here, but do not put whatever's left back into the container. And do not double dip your brush from the main solution mix. I probably left this on a little bit too long. It does actually say do not let it dry, and I think this is the reason why, because then it can start pickling your metal and it's harder to remove. Leaving it on for as long as possible has never really caused me any issues. The issue is that it becomes somewhat more challenging to remove in small, difficult to reach areas once it dries out. Since it will not cause too much harm once it's on the paint, I always just use brake and clutch cleaner to wipe everything down with. I got this from Euro Car Parts, and for a large bottle it's the least expensive brake clutch cleaner I have seen. It's undoubtedly a good price, but I'm not too sure how long they'll keep it that way, so I tend to buy it in bulk when I need some. I decided to move on to the front footwell. Since I was here, there was some rust there, I might as well take care of that as well. Before and after applying and leaving it, the steel was bright and shiny, though I'm not too sure if you can see it, but it has somewhat a matte grey appearance to it now. I'm talking about that matte grey that results from pickling, which seems to be interacting with the steel surface's molecules. ZG90 is the primer that I have chosen to use. Although it's not as effective as a hot dip galvanisation, it still provides superior protection because it uses a cold zinc galvanisation process when applied to bare metal. I would have used red oxide, but since they have changed the formula, I don't believe it's as good as what it used to be. Sometimes you have to knock it back because this stuff dissolves in the atmosphere a little too quickly. This has become very thick and stodgy and needs to be thinned back out. Throughout the summer I have taken off the lid far too many times. In this I have added some hammerite thinners. I guess you could use white spirit, but I think this product will work better as this kind of evaporates more quickly than the white spirit, and I don't think it will leave like an oily residue like the white spirit might. Just mix it up well to get all those zinc particles combined. This is quite thick and it's a pain in the ass to apply. Once I've thinned it down, it's a little bit easier to do. I'll go over it with 2 coats. On the side of the can it says to stipple it on, which is what I'm doing here. Basically dab it on to get a better finish. I simply applied 2 coats and dabbed it on in a certain area to ensure my brush stroke wouldn't go up and over the lip onto the main panel and be seen. As I mentioned earlier, it evaporates fairly quickly, so by the time I have finished going around this small panel, the other portions have begun to dry, thus you can essentially go over it again all in one go. On a L2 van, I simply cut the neoprene tape into square pieces. I will need 40 for each side. I'm sticking them on in a diamond formation, so any water that does come down will run down the sides and go down. Once these are on, I push my finger to find the indentation and cut an X into the neoprene. Now, using Auto Glint gloss protection, a ceramic coating would have been even better. Applying all around and buffing it out so that's all nice and waterproof and protected underneath the trim when it goes back on. A DX on the trim indicates driver's side when you come to fit these, or if they're all muddled up like what I did. It's easy to figure out which way is the top and which is the bottom. A few of the clip attachments are positioned slightly backwards. Simply place the trim to the panel and see what matches up. The top row clips must go in horizontally and the bottom ones can go in vertically. They simply do not grip otherwise. To allow them to slide forwards and backwards when the trim is released, position the trim clips in the centre of the attachment points. To align the holes, you may need to use a screwdriver to move them backwards and forwards a little bit. If you're not too sure, try a dry fit. You have to exert a lot of force when pushing these on because the neoprene is now occupying a few millimetres of space than what it was before. They will often click when they are fully seated. And this is on the inside. You can see where that neoprene has sort of expanded and come inside of the little hole. In order to test how well these seal without the Sikaflex around the top and the sides, I decided to pour a bucket of water over the trim and down the panel. There does not appear to be any water entering from these points. These vans do get pretty rusty, and the way the seals are designed is pretty interesting, so I'll be making another video on how I fix and seal them up. They have like a top and a bottom, and because of this various layers that run through the centre of the seal, it's a bit awkward to get in there and to actually like protect from any rust. I will use this Blitz kitchen towels with the brake and clutch cleaner to remove any polish after the trim is attacked. This is so the Sikaflex will adhere to it more easily. Due to the greater strength, these are far superior than the blue towels on a roll. The brake cleaner removes a lot of grime from the plastic trim even though they have been cleaned and washed. This is most likely the oils from the plastic. It will also remove a slight layer of the ZG90 paint as well. Be sure to use a high quality silicone sealant gun rather than a cheap one. This is a good one and I think I got it from Screwfix. It's probably on the best part of nearly £20 and it really does make a world of difference. To avoid the Sikaflex skinning over before I can work on it, I'm going to move up and down in short bursts. I might not be as good as this as you guys are. As soon as I get good at this technique, it seems like I don't have to do any caulking for ages. And then when I do have to start it, I start all over again at level 1. Follow the techniques for doing this that you know best. I don't like the look of a plain bead. I like to go over it and make sure it's all smudged in. It's entirely up to you whether or not you choose to leave a bead. It could be faster than having to go over and smudge it all in and straighten up the line. I like to then run my finger over it in a soap solution of fairy liquid. I will then go back over it with a bit of that Blitz towel heavily soaked in a solution of the brake and clutch cleaner and straighten up the line. This is a messy job. Whenever you get any of this Sikaflex on your fingers, clean it off because otherwise you'll rub it in everywhere and you will spend more time cleaning it up than whatever. And this will take time, going over it again and again just to get that perfect line. I never really got on well with those silicone squeezy mouldy tool things. Maybe I should learn how to use them. Then I'll wet my finger and go back over it where it's bulged up again after straightening up that line to get a nice clean finish. Once you find you get that good position where you can put pressure on and have a steady line, to me this is the sort of position here. I feel I can apply more pressure using my thumb. As you can see, I can get a nice little line by using my finger as a guide. I choose to do it this way, but perhaps the bead would work better for you. It's preferable to leave a bead on some of the vertical sides rather than attempting to smooth them down, because occasionally you cannot achieve the same smooth finish as the tops. So far I have discovered that melting wax over the ends of this is best method for sealing any silicone, Sikaflex or similar material tube. A tea light works well. Drip it over the top, let it set, then add some more. 9 times out of 10 this will last for 6 months. I hope you found this to be a useful informational guide. If not, put any comments below on what you would have done differently. So just a quick bonus, this is the door rail guide, whatever it's called, and that was atrocious behind there, like really bad. So to start off with, I undone these 2 bolts here, and then I had to use a couple of jacks to support the door, and from the inside I had a strap from the top going around some ribbon. Now when I removed the panel, this is how bad it was. It was really bad. Look at all the rust just peeping through here. It's gone through the galvanization. It's completely shot away. I've done exactly the same process as what I did with them, but it was obviously a little bit more in depth because it's all more rusted through and it's completely shot. I mean, look at that. That's just savage, isn't it? Like, and there, that's bad as well. Bit crap. It's just that was shocking, to be honest with you. And then so I sanded all that down and I put on the JENOLITE over that, and then I painted the CG90. I put it all back with the sponge and sponge protection on there, and then I sealed the top and sides of that as well, because obviously I don't want to be doing that again, because you have to get to the bolts on the inside. But just look at it, like crazy, isn't it? I fell free, over and out.